Good evening. Welcome to Lower Providence's June 26, 2014 Zoning Board hearing meeting. I'm sorry about the delay. We had to do a little switching around. Would you all please stand to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Hart.
Here.
Mrs. Cluley.
Here.
Mrs. McFarland.
Here.
Mrs. Esky.
Here.
Mr. Borai.
Here. You're the same Mrs.
I almost did.
Okay, would someone like to read the zoning hearing board statement?
The zoning hearing board will give all interested parties an opportunity to ask questions and testify in connection with the applications being heard tonight. After a witness for the application completes testimony, you will be given an opportunity to ask questions of that witness. In addition, after the applicant has completed its case, you will also be given an opportunity to testify, which will require that you be sworn in. If you wish to participate in the hearing on an application, you should complete the entry of appearance form, which will be provided to you by the zoning officer who is sitting at the table next to the court reporter. We ask your cooperation in maintaining silence during the hearing so both the board and the court reporter can hear the testimony of the witness. We also ask that all cell phones be turned off.
Thank you. Item number 1 on our agenda is Z1404.
Excuse me, Madam
Yeah.
Chairperson. I would like to make a motion that we adjust the agenda and we keep item 1 as it is, move item 4 to item 2, keep item 3 where it is, and item 2 becomes item 4.
Give a second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to rearrange the agenda. Any questions on it? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll go back to item 1, which stays where it was. Bob, would you like to read that one?
Z.
Excuse
Say
me.
Bob or Tom?
I will in 1 second.
No, okay, let Tom,
Did you say
Go ahead,
Tom or
Tom.
Bob? Tom. Z1404 Carlo Myers, 2973 2nd Street, Norristown, Pennsylvania, 19403. Represented by Michael E. Fury, Esquire. Fury and Ballesteri, PC, 1043 South Park Avenue, Audubon, PA, 19403. This is continued hearing.
okay. Jeff?
Yeah, this is a continuation of a hearing from several different months. And since our last hearing, I received an exhibit from Mr. Meyer that he was requested to provide. It is a letter from Lower Providence Emergency Medical Services. It's dated April 24, 2014. It's signed by its executive director, and it confirms that Mr. Meyer has an agreement of sale with Lower Providence Emergency Medical Services. We're going to mark that as Exhibit A10. Next, we requested from Mr. Meyer, and we received a plan. It's sheet 1 of 1. It is prepared by J. Glass and Associates, drawn by J. Glass. It has a date of June 19, 2014, and it purports to show the former community center, former ambulance station, and it is shown as a in its residential form or proposed residential form as a unit, an upper floor plan, a lower floor plan, and a front elevation. And it also shows a proposed storage area. And that will be marked as Exhibit A11. I believe, Mr. Meyer, you brought Mr. Glass here this evening?
Yes, if you have any questions.
Okay, and I suppose we'll just, as a matter of routine, if you could swear in Mr. Glass.
J. Glass. I do.
Mr. Glass, did you prepare the document that was marked Exhibit A11?
Yes, sir.
And does it depict 3 different proposed dwellings?
Yes, it does. Yes, sir. It proposes 3 separate dwellings.
And does the proposal show any construction outside the current footprint of the building?
No, sir, it does not.
Okay. Does the board have any questions of Mr. Glass?
I'd like to ask one question, if I may. Mr. Glass, are you a registered architect?
No, sir. I'm an architectural designer and consultant.
Okay. Because I just wondered, there's no seal on the plan.
That's correct, sir. The seal, I work with architects and engineers. Had there been exterior construction or any alterations to structure, a seal would have been required.
Thank you.
Mr. Glass, there's dimensions shown on A11. Did you measure the existing building?
I measured it myself, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Does the board have any other questions?
It's your expertise. Have you worked with this type of building before?
Sir, I get involved with a lot of conversions of buildings to apartments. I have not converted an ambulance center to apartments, but I have converted medical offices and medical centers and many kinds of schools and other buildings to apartments.
Now, within your expertise, is there anything in this building that shows that it could not be converted to the 3 residences?
No, sir, I do not see anything that prohibits residential, safe residential dwelling.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Kathy, you have any questions?
Nope.
I believe we took comments from the audience before, but we may want to just, since it's been a couple of months, we may want to see if there's any
Yeah, I think so.
additional comments that haven't already been made by anyone who wants to speak from the community, who wants to speak in favor of the application or against the application. Let the record reflect that no one presented themselves to speak opposed or against or with the application. With that,
I think
There is
they
a hand
did.
in
They
the
weren't quite
okay,
up to.
ma'am, do you want to step forward to the podium? Could you give us your name?
Hi, my name is Stacy Renkowitz. My last name is R-Y, and it's in Mary, K-I-E-W-I-C-Z.
Ms. Remkowitz, are you a Lower Providence resident?
I reside at the corner of 4th and Hillside at 400 Hillside.
Okay.
And we actually came for another reason tonight. This is the first that we're actually hearing of it. So I'm slightly concerned at the fact that now there's going to be apartments at the bottom of the hill in the ambulance corps. And we've also been told that now there's going to be tractor trailers and storage and stuff being put in there that could potentially hinder the value of our properties, as well as we don't know any of the tractor trailer drivers or who they are or where they're coming from that are now going to be in our residential neighborhood. Is there any reason why the residents weren't notified?
I believe there were residents at the first hearing that we, that was held by the zoning hearing board, and I believe at the second hearing as well, there were some residents who appeared.
Well, we received the notification for the Daniel and Patricia Tabor, which is why we're here tonight. But I'm pretty sure that we're in the same, within the certain square footage, that we should have gotten notification on this. So is there anybody that can explain exactly what's going on, so that way some of the other neighbors have an idea as what's happening?
Well, there's actually been, this is the third hearing that we've had in which Mr. Meyer here has presented evidence and testimony about what his plans are. And his plans, generally speaking, are to put 3 separate dwelling units in the current ambulance or former community center, and to put in the current garage where the ambulances are kept, to move his business, which is a carpeting business.
And if it's zoned R2 for residential, it's okay to put a business with tractor trailers that are be coming in and out of there at 6 and 6:30 in the morning, as well as on Saturdays?
Mr. Meyer has actually applied for a special exception because it's his position that it's a non-conforming use. And a non-conforming use can be changed to another non-conforming use as long as it's not for something that's for a more restricted type of use. So Mr. Meyer is applying to change the non-conforming use to a different non-conforming use.
Okay, well, I would like it to go on the record that I am opposed to this happening in our neighborhood.
And your property would be approximately how far from,
2 blocks.
or
less
from
than
the
2
ambulance
blocks.
center would be 2
Correct.
blocks?
Mhm.
Okay.
We're just at 4th. Well, the ambulance corps is basically at 2nd, and we're at 4th and Hillside, right at the corner property.
Okay.
And we take pride in our neighborhood, and we've had some safety issues that have already occurred in the neighborhood with the woman's car across the street being stolen, and we set up a whole thing where we had the chief come out and do a talk to all of the neighbors to try and set up like a little bit of a community watch type program, and this makes us very uncomfortable. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you didn't interrupt at all. I was just going to say that I don't know what the geographical restrictions are as far as who gets the notices, but there were several. I was just checking my notes, and we got at least 3 or 4 neighbors came up and spoke before us, and I knew there were more in the audience who did not speak.
Well,
So-
yes, I did see a couple of neighbors here that I recognized from closer to the ambulance corps. But like I said, you know, we got the one for the Tabors, which is a block away, and this is 2 blocks away, and we didn't receive anything in the mail. So that's a little disappointing. But we just had a scenario where a 4,400 square foot house was just built behind ours with no notification to us as well, illegally. So we're here to try and settle some things down, hopefully. He's looking for
Stacy,
something.
I have to apologize to you. I just looked through my files, and I sort of take pride in keeping files, but I have nothing in there. Generally, the zoning code department will send out letters to all the neighbors within the surrounding areas, but I don't have them in my file.
Okay.
I know the property was posted, but we did not do this, and I can't blame Mike for it because that was before Mike's time.
And again, to repeat, what Mr. Meyer's trying to do is take it from the one building, at least from an ambulance center, which, you know, is non-conforming already, and change it to a business, which is non-conforming, but probably no more stressful to the neighbors than the original, than the ambulance center, which ambulance going in and out at all hours of the day.
We made an announcement at the first hearing, so it's probably based on the comments that you've made, it'd be important to make the announcement that anyone who wishes to be a party to the application can say they wish to be a party to the application, and a party has certain rights, and among those rights would be the right to take an appeal. And since you weren't at the first hearing, you wouldn't know that, so you may be a party to the application if you wish to.
Yes, I do believe that I would like that.
Okay, and since you're asking for that, could you give us your exact address?
It's 400 Hillside Avenue.
All right. So you can be a party. A party is permitted to submit evidence. If you'd like to be sworn, you can give testimony.
Okay.
Do you want to do that?
Can I do it at a later date so that way I can have some further discussion as to, like I said, this is news to us. This is a shock to us that this is going on, and I understand what he's saying about the disruption from the ambulance corps. But I'm pretty sure that, you know, the workers for the ambulance corps are somewhat screened by the township, I would have to assume. So there is a big difference there. I work for a municipality. I know the ins and outs of this. So to compare apples to apples, you're not comparing apples to apples. I feel far more comfortable with listening to the ambulance going in and out plus knowing that the ambulance is at the bottom of my hill if I needed them, God forbid. This is far different than that. So,
It's not, the board hasn't decided yet whether this is going to be the last evening they hear it or whether there's going to be another hearing. So,
okay, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that there were people that do
All right.
object.
your comments are all on the record.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you were all the way in the back.
I know. Yes, my name is Dolly Serafisi. I've been a resident of Lower Providence all my life. And we did get letters, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the application or against it? All right, with that, does the board want to make a?
Here comes another one.
Wait.
Hello.
There was another hand back there.
Yes, ma'am.
Linda Alabach, I live at 401 House. Linda Alabach, Allebach. And I live at 401 Hillside. And I also was unaware of this until recently, what was going on.
Were you aware of it just this evening from being here
Not
for
just
another
as-
application?
No, just in like the last week or so. I didn't know, I was told a decision was made, and then I was told, and that there was nothing that could be done, and then I was told the decision hadn't been made, and that there was still time for us to do something. So that's why I came to the meeting, to find what's going on. I was also disturbed to hear that a place that's been a community center and a help to the community, where a church before that is now no longer to be a help to the community in that respect. It's now going to be a business, bringing business into a residential neighborhood where there are kids playing, young kids, and I just feel like Ridge Pike is just creeping up the street, and it's hurting us up at the top. We're building nicer houses up there. There's a house on the market. There's a house behind us that is 3,500 square foot, 7-year-old home. We're trying to make that place better. Everyone's fixing up their houses, and now we're going to have something in the street that's not positive. It's now on the negative side, and it's disturbing. So, and I didn't know anything about it either. I don't know where the notices were, but I didn't get any letters to my house or to that house or anything. So,
Approximately how far away from the ambulance station are you located?
I'm 2 blocks away as well. I'm across on the same side of the street as the ambulance.
Okay. Do you have anything else you wish to present?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me speak. I am Dean Allebach, Allebach, husband of Linda, 401 Hillside, 2 blocks up the road. There's actually 3 issues that I had, and I just learned about this kind of through the grapevine, so I never got any official notice. But the one is obviously the removal of a community center that's used by people in the neighborhood there. The second issue is obviously the negative, I'm sure, impact that it will have to all the residential properties in that area, including my house. And the third is, it's so beautiful to be there, quality of life. It's so beautiful to be there, and it's quiet. And I enjoy so much the sound of the Presbyterian church bells when they ring on the hour. It's a wonderful thing. And it's quiet there, and you can hear the church bells, and you don't hear any diesel trucks pulling in or pulling out. And that's really going to be an annoyance and really have a negative impact on the quality of life there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment in favor of the application or against it? All right, let the record reflect there was no one else. At this time, the board wants to decide whether it wants to make a motion to close the record or leave the record open, which is essentially deciding whether you want to continue this for one more hearing or not.
Joe, I have a correction first, if I may. When the chairperson asked me to read the first item, I read that Mr. Meyer is represented by Michael Fury, and I don't see Michael Fury sitting at the table. Are you still represented by Michael Fury?
I didn't bring him to this hearing today.
But you're
I
still...
still socialized with him, but I didn't bring him here for this
You
hearing.
socialized with him, but are you still represented by him?
I would say no.
Okay, fine. And I'd like to make that correction in the testimony, please, that Mr. Fury does not represent Mr. Myers. Okay.
So can we adjourn for a few minutes and have a chat?
Yes, we can recess into executive session.
May I just say something first? And it's, I'm so sympathetic to some of the people here today, and I know that I would be annoyed if I hadn't got letters and I hadn't heard about some of this. But this is really kind of the 11th hour, and we've had several meetings already. We've met, we've talked about this. We've had Mr. Meyer come in several times. Certainly the removal of the community center, I know how that must impact the community, but that's going to happen anyway, presuming that things go on with the new building. And the ambulance corps, you know, they're leaving, so that's going to change anyway. We can't make them stay. That's not our role. And in the earlier testimony, Mr. Meyer did talk about what his operations would be in the building, and that's kind of what you've missed. Maybe that would have alleviated some of your concerns. Maybe it would not have, I don't know. But he talked about where the workers would come in, which is usually in the morning early, but they would leave quickly. They wouldn't be back until at the end of the day. And normally there would be no one at the premises, or maybe just yourself. And he did go into some detail about how the operations would work. And I'm sorry that you weren't all here to hear that. I think some of your neighbors were, and maybe they could remember or discuss it with you. But I don't know that we need to go over this all again is my only concern, and that we've had this about 4 months worth of meetings now. And even though, as I said, I'm very sympathetic, I don't know that anything else is going to be presented that's going to make a legal difference to what we're doing here today.
I guess
maybe
I'd just
speaking
like
out
to
of
add
turn
one
here.
more thing to that, and that is if you weren't here earlier, you wouldn't know that the board took the not routine step of conducting a view of the premises. So on a Saturday, when the applicant was present, the board actually went to the property and toured the property. That doesn't happen in every zoning case. So I just thought I'd mention that for the benefit of the neighbors as well.
I just would like to add to that. Some of us have already been to the building many times over the years and knew what it was like. And we wanted to see if that could be converted to 3 apartments with the proper entrances and exits and safety and everything it needs. And that's why we took, well, one day and spent a couple hours there and went through it and went over with Mr.
Meyer.
Carlo, whatever his name is, Meyer. What he did, what his business was like. The carpet business, I mean, I know nothing about it, but he gets carpets. He has contractors that come, take the carpet and go put it in a home or a store, wherever it's going to be. They're not actually working there. I don't think, he mentioned there wouldn't be a lot of tractor trailers. I think most times they get a load of carpeting and then they leave. But he gave us a pretty vivid description of what he did and how it would affect there. As far as the 3 apartments go, they're small apartments. They're not built for 5 children, and I mean they're not going to be that big. Matter of fact, 1 or 2 of them are perfect for somebody handicapped because they have ramps going in. We did have a neighbor complain about, at the present time, there's a lot of kids that hang out because they want to be where the ambulance crew is, and it's noisy, and a couple of neighbors on sides of it and across from it were complaining. But other than that, it wasn't a heavy use of it. And the looks of it, a community center can be a community center for all kinds of things. And this one was a kind of a scaled down one. Mostly senior citizens used it, and they're not noisy, and they don't bring their beer cans in, and that's not going to happen in a place that has apartments like that. I don't know what else the ambulance squad could do with it, being they're in the throes of a nice new building for the township, and an expansion. And all that was kind of really going over thoroughly at our other hearings. And by law, letters were sent out for the first hearing, and the town, that's a requirement of coming to this board. So, but there's also a requirement how far out you have to go. And that was done before the first hearing. So if you were beyond that and didn't get a letter, we apologize, but that's just the way it was. And we never get reporters, but it's on TV and after each hearing, so you could have heard a lot of what went on with that. But unless you were here, you missed all the internal stuff that we went over.
I would like to add, should we agree to pass this, there are 10 or 12 conditions that will be put on this plan to restrict from having it unattractive. And I believe the trucks will only come once a day, if that, and the workers will come in the morning and leave and won't come back. No one likes to see their environment changed, but I think if you were able to attend any of these things, or when you hear what the conditions are, perhaps you will be a little more acceptance of what possibly will happen there.
Does the board want to recess into executive session, or does somebody want to make a motion?
No, I want to recess for a
Yeah.
minute.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The board's going to take a slight recess for a few minutes.
Maybe I'll only recess.
Take this.
Does any board member have a motion? And just to clarify, Mr. Meyer has asked for a special exception pursuant to sections 143-147 and 143-150. And he's also asked for an application for an extension of the 6-month period for acquisition of permits under section 143-170.
Okay. Does anyone, board member, have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, I would like to make a motion concerning zoning application C-1404. First, for Building 1, I move that the board approve by special exception the proposed change of this building from a community center to a maximum of 3 residential units. Second, for Building 2, I move that the board approve by special exception the proposed change from ambulance garage and maintenance building to a commercial building. And both of these are with the following exceptions that our attorney, Mr. Bagley, will enunciate.
Okay, the condition number 1, the subject site is parcel number 43-00-06316-00-4, also identified as Block 20, Units 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 101. Condition number 2, no outside storage of contracting equipment and/or materials except 1 or 2 enclosed dumpsters shall be permitted. Condition number 3, heavy equipment, heavy mobile equipment, and construction or landscape contractor vehicles shall not be stored or parked on the exterior of the subject site or inside the garage. Number 4, no more than 7 commercial vehicles shall be parked on the subject site at any single time. Number 5, a vegetative or wooden buffer shall be maintained around the dumpsters to buffer the trash from neighbors. A properly maintained wooden or vegetative buffer at least the same height as the dumpsters shall be maintained at all times. Number 6, the applicant voluntarily agreed on the record that Block 20, Units 67, 68, and 69 shall not be merged with Units 57, 58, and 59. And condition number 7, fencing of no less than 4 feet in height shall be installed and permanently maintained on the subject site between the grassed area in front of the proposed residential building, the former community center, and the adjoining paved area. Those are the 7 conditions.
Joe, could I add one?
Yes.
That the total number of vehicles for the residential units be limited by the rental leases to a total of 6, 2 per unit.
Okay, that'll be condition number 8.
I got condition 9. With maybe 13 after that. Condition 9 will be that there'll be a dumpster behind the garage, large enough to take care of the carpet that comes out of that garage, and that the owner of the property will use the hauler that's designated by the township and not his own personal hauler.
All right. So you got 9 conditions, a motion and 9 conditions.
I have a question on that. Say that again, about the hauler.
What do you mean, we'll say it again?
What you just said.
I
The
said,
township will designate,
no, the hauler will use the hauler that's designated by the township. Same way as you are, Nancy, and same way I am, and same way everybody in Lower Providence is.
I think.
Understand?
Yeah, he
Tom, I
said,
assume you're saying that you want the pickup to be the same day as everyone else's pickup?
Yes,
So
sir.
that there won't be
Yes, sir.
alternating
Yes, sir.
periods and the local
Yes, sir.
residents
Yes, sir.
will be.
That's why they have a map saying when they're gonna pick up.
Okay.
and on the condition he has to pick up more than once or twice.
Tom, she's asking you.
I'm sorry?
Suppose he has to come in an extra time.
Fine. Let them come in 10 times. As long as the place isn't garbage, Nance.
Well,
I'm
just thinking
What I'm
about
saying is I don't
volume.
want the place to
Yeah.
look like a hellhole, Nancy.
Yeah, well, did I say it was?
No,
Don't take the bait.
but you're saying
I'm
15
saying that
times to pick up.
the carpeting is bulky. So if he comes in twice a week, like I get trash picked up twice a week, that may not be enough.
All right, then let me explain something to you. When you get a paper from the hauler that has the contract in this township and you have carpet, what do you have to cut that carpet to, Nance?
Doesn't matter, it's on personal.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
You gotta cut it a certain size for them to take it away. So if he's gonna have carpet hanging out of the dumpster, that's his problem.
I would like to say something, there'll be a larger dumpster on the, behind the garage, it's not a normal trash can.
That's what I made them,
Yeah,
that's what I put the
so-
stipulation in.
Yeah, it's, when it needs to be dumped, we usually call to get it dumped, like maybe sometimes it's once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, once a week. But there's not little tiny cans there, there's one big can that'll be elevated, just like the other stipulation with the fencing and whatever around it, so.
Okay. That condition then may not be necessary if it's only being done once every week or every 2
Yeah,
weeks.
so that, it's
Picked
already
up on a
set.
regular run, Bob.
Okay,
Okay,
so that is the motion.
Didn't we have something else that had a fence between the properties?
Yeah, I think you
yeah,
read that.
it's number 7.
Number 7.
Okay?
A second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Hearing none. Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 No. 3-1.
And I'd like to make a statement too, Nancy, if I may. I served on the ambulance. I have nothing against the ambulance corps. I served on the ambulance. I first moved down here for about 8 years. And I'm proud to be part of that. So that has nothing to do with my vote.
Okay. We'll go down to item
I think you're
number
done.
2, which is Z1410.
Joe, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, wait, Nancy, we're changing the
Oh,
guard.
that's right, I forgot we was switch attorneys. Thank you, Joe.
You'll get something in the mail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, you'll get a letter.
See you, thanks. This is for you.
I need a beer.
I thought you fell down.
You might this on. Thank you. Okay. Kathy, you want to read it when we,
You ready?
yeah. Can we have everyone,
Excuse me, item 4, that's now item 2. Z1410, William and Patricia McDonald, 3017 Penview Lane, Norristown. Applicant is proposing to construct a patio on an existing non-conforming detached single-family home. Applicant requests relief from 143-37 and 143-30A B2 residential 2 rear yard setback required of 44 feet down to 33 feet. The parcel ID number of the property is 4300109440-285. Subject property is located at 3017 Penview Lane, Norristown, 1943, currently zoned R2.
okay.
You want me to start?
Yeah, oh, shall we introduce you?
Welcome.
Ed, you want to?
All right, so Mr. Brandt is here on behalf of the McDonald's?
Correct.
Not McDonald, but McDonald.
Correct.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And for the board's indulgence, Mr. McDonald gave up his Phillies night tonight to be here.
I set my family down.
And it's fireworks night, and that was my night to be there too.
Oh, we feel so bad.
We'll have some breaks.
Mr. Brandt, you know how this show is produced, so please, produce.
Thank you, board members. Robert Brand on behalf of Bill McDonald and his wife. Mrs. Eske correctly read the legal notice. I already gave you an exhibit packet that's in front of you, and then we're going to have some photographs. But this is, we're going to take you out of ambulances and apartments into patios. I want to mark as applicant's exhibit A1. I guess we should have him sworn in.
If he's ready to testify. I thought you might have an opening, which is what I thought you were.
I wasn't going to do that. Trying to
That's a good
simplify.
opening for me, but Paul, it's your show now.
William McDonald. I do.
Bill, you and your wife live at the property that's the subject of this application at 3017 Penview Lane. Is that right?
That is correct.
Your wife's name's Patricia, and you have 4 children, and you all live there.
Correct.
And I'm going to show you what's marked as applicant's exhibit A1. That's the deed to the property, which you were the first owner of.
That is correct. We built the home 16 years ago.
And it's a David Cutler development.
That is correct.
16 years ago, you've been in the home the whole time.
Correct.
It's your desire to build a deck on the property, and you're going to explain that in a minute. The property is what we call non-conforming with regard to the dimensions and the area. Is that right?
That is correct.
So in 1998, when the home was built, there were certain dimensions that were in effect, and today, 2014, those dimensions have changed. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
I'm going to show you A2, which is a series of photographs that you took of the property. The board members each have them. If you could just briefly run through what is shown in those 3 photographs.
Sure. So the first photograph up on the screen is depicting a picture facing west towards our driveway. You can see my son's car park and our neighbor at 3019 Penview Lane. The grassy area right in front where the 2 posts are at 33 and 44 are where the patio will be put in. So that's the area under question right now. The next picture is from our deck looking down to where the patio area will be, again facing west, and our neighbor's yard is in the background. And the last picture is a picture from our neighbor's area looking east, looking at the existing deck that has been there for about 14 years now. And we're looking to put the patio just off that deck for entertaining and family events.
And again, what are the 2 stakes that appear in the property?
So the 2 stakes are, the setback changed when the lot dimensions changed. Our lot, and we have this in exhibit, I believe it's A3, we have an 18,000 square foot lot. According to the current current minimum lot sizes, if you have public water and public sewer, are 25,000 square feet. So the setback with this lot that side is currently 60 feet. 60 feet from the rear of our property would put a setback somewhere in my living room. So about 10 feet into my living room, actually. So what we're looking for is a variance to be able to pull the patio so that we can have a much wider patio. The picture you see, if you can move back one picture, Michael. Oh, the other way, I'm sorry. So if you see this, the stake in the ground that says 44 feet, if you have a 60-foot setback and a 16-foot patio, which is standard, you would have 44 feet from the end of the patio to the back of your property. At 44 feet, you can see the stake right there. Our patio would be about 6 feet wide, more of a sidewalk than a patio.
So you've shown us A3, and there are actually 3 different, I'm going to call them plot plans that you've created in A3.
Correct.
Take us through each plot plan and tell us what they are. They seem to be similar, but there are differences.
There are differences. So in the first, and so in A3, the first diagram I created was I took the dimensions, actually right off the Lower Providence site, great site, that had the exact measurements, the 111 feet, .75, the 122.06, and the 150. These are right off of the website and the exact dimensions of the property. What I did then was I took my own measurements of the setbacks from the front. They're taken from the curb. So for instance, at the top of the diagram is the front of the house. So there is a little bit of a kick-in. It's a 75 feet in the main part of the house, and where the garage is 65 feet. That is the garage to the right where the driveway is.
But let's clarify. You don't need any relief from the front yard.
Correct.
You don't need any relief from either of the 2 side yards.
Correct.
So the only relief you need is in the rear yard.
Correct.
Okay, so let's take us to the second.
Okay. I did want to point one thing out on that diagram for the board, just so you know. Our back property line abuts to Worcester Township. So the folks immediately behind us are not a part of Lower Providence, just as an FYI.
Okay. Take us to the second drawing.
Sure. Now what I did here was I basically took all the dimensions away, and I really focused on if we were to abide by the current setbacks. So as I said, there's a 60-foot setback. You'll see that in red, current setback requirement. That setback, as I mentioned earlier, would put the beginning of any structure 10 feet into my living room. So if I were to stake by the 16 feet, obviously I couldn't put any patio in the living room. I'd have to have a 6-foot wide patio, which is the dark blue line. If you see the dark blue line, sticking by the current requirements, that's the line for the patio.
And that will not violate a side yard setback.
That is correct.
But it will violate the rear yard, which is the area which you're asking for the relief.
And that's the next diagram that will actually show the dimensions should we get the approval to move forward. Is we're requesting the proposed dimensions of the patio, and I have to apologize to the board. I did not put the width in here. That is an oversight on my part. It's 22 feet wide, and 19 feet deep. So we're requesting a 19-foot patio, which will result in a 31-foot setback from the rear of the property. Again, as Mr. Brandt had said, there is no other variance required for the side.
Have you reviewed any other patios and their dimensions in Lower Providence Township in your neighborhood?
I have three neighbors, two direct neighbors to my right at 3015 and 3013 that have patios. I did not do exact measurements. We do have pictures.
Why don't you show, we have
Sure.
photographs up on the board, but not in your exhibit packet.
So in 3015, this is our neighbor directly, if you're looking at the front of our house to the right, this is 3015. This is an existing patio with actually 2 levels, and in the far left corner, there's actually a koi pond too. So it's a pretty large patio that they have put in. That was put in probably 10 or 15 years ago. The next picture is 2 doors down at 3013 Penview Lane. Again, a 2-tiered patio with a fire pit. And as you can see, the dimensions in the walkway, I did not measure them specifically, but our patio square footage-wise are less than either of those.
Right. So the relief that you're requested, in your opinion, is it keeping with the residential nature of the neighborhood?
Absolutely.
And the patio would have a depth of 19 feet, leaving a rear yard setback of 31 feet. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then the walkway from the driveway to the patio will be within the 20-foot side yard setback?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
In addition, we asked for relief from 143-3812, A2B, excuse me. Paula, I talked too quickly. Why did you ask for relief from that section?
That's the 16 feet. The 16 feet, what we looked at was based upon the living space we were looking at. I have 4 children. We've got a lot of graduations coming up. We do a lot of home entertaining. And this is just a nice way to be able to provide additional space. And we looked at the 19 feet. We are putting a small fire pit in that will be used in the fall and the spring by our family. But based upon the recommendation from our landscaper and the ease of movement within the patio, we are looking at a 19-foot. That 19-foot that's the tip. It is curved, as I think you'll see in the diagram. So that is the furthest it will go. The sides will be less than that.
Due to the existing site constraints, is it possible for you to build a patio of 19 feet anywhere else on the property?
No, not at all.
Is it your opinion that if the relief is granted, it would adversely affect the neighborhood?
No.
Does the relief that you're requesting represent the minimum relief required in order to afford you the ability to build this patio?
Yes, it does.
Now, have you also spoken to your neighboring property owners with regard to this?
Yes, I have, and I believe in the packet that you have, there's a signed from our neighbors, 2 of our neighbors to the right, so 3015 and 3013 have signed a document saying they've seen the notification that the township sent out, have no problem with the patio and are supportive. My neighbor to the left, 3019, agreed. My neighbor 3021 is on vacation this week, so unfortunately I was not able to get them to sign, but I did talk to them about it, and they had no issues with it. And I additionally got our neighbor directly across the street.
Sitting next to you is Sherry Catanzaro, the landscape designer, and I don't know that I need her to testify, but why don't you tell the board what's going to be on the patio? You can tell us what's going to be on the patio,
okay.
And if they have any
Okay.
questions of Sherry, they can ask.
Sure. The patio will consist of a walkway from the driveway. There'll be some lighting on that, and there'll be some landscaping. There'll be then an area, as I mentioned earlier, 19 by 22. It'll have a curved seating area where folks can sit around the fire pit. It'll be about 4 feet high.
not even.
3 feet high?
Yeah.
About 3 feet high. It'll have some lighting on it, and they'll also go, the patio will go right over to just about to the deck. There'll be some landscaping between the patio and the deck, and that's pretty much a description. If there's any questions of the board, I'm happy to answer.
Right. I don't have any further questions. I tried to sort of keep this concise for you, and obviously, if there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
I have a question. On the diagram between the existing deck and the patio, is that just going to be a grassy area in there?
We'll probably have some, I think I'm off.
You ran out of battery.
Speak loud. We're going to have some low plants. It won't be grass, it'll be some low planting and some shrubbery.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the only question I have.
Anyone else? Joyce?
I'm always concerned when there's a fire pit. Are there any existing large trees where branches might overhang the new deck?
There are no trees, there's one tree in the backyard that's probably about 35 to 40 feet away, and it is only maybe 18 feet tall. There are no large trees in the backyard. All trees are in the front of the yard.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I would just like to clarify, the seating wall in the back, how high will that be?
The seat itself will be at 18.
Oh, you have to be sworn.
Oh, yeah,
You
okay.
might
You
lie
tell him
about
and
the
he'll tell
height.
us.
Okay, there we go, 18 and then.
18 and then 30.
Okay, so the seating area will be 18 inches off the ground and 30 in the back.
So there'll be no impingement of sight lines, it'll just a place for people to come and sit and
Exactly.
enjoy the fire?
Exactly, that was the goal.
Okay.
Do you have an issue with the section?
Excuse me?
The section?
Actually, it was cited correctly in the exhibit. I think that
For
in the agenda,
clarification.
we're showing that you're asking for 143A2B, and I think it should be 143A2A.
When I looked at it, I believe you're correct, sir.
A2A.
And you wish to amend your application accordingly, I presume?
Correct.
Yes.
We'll make the change.
Question, Nancy, do you have any questions?
No.
I'll bring you more phones.
Okay. You had mentioned that Worcester Township is behind you. So how far from the property line that you have with your adjoining rear neighbor, how far is it from their line, can you estimate, to their home?
I did an actual measurement, it's about 105 feet.
Thanks.
Development behind us, there's a curve in the road, so those homes are further back from our houses than our neighbors to my right and to my left.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Is that a different development back there?
Yes, it is.
It came in after yours, right?
That is correct.
Other questions, anyone?
Nope.
Thank you.
Move for the admission of my exhibits.
Admitted. Without objection. Is there anybody who wants to speak on this topic? Seeing none?
Madam
Oh, wait,
Chairperson.
Mike does.
Yes, sir.
Just for the purposes of the record, there was a legal advertisement that initially appeared the first week.
Aha.
Yeah.
The address was incorrectly reported as Penn Valley as opposed to Penn View.
That's right.
The subsequent ads were corrected, as were any notices that went out. So just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Mrzinski, for that enlightened response.
I rode around a long time.
See? She was driving all over Hell's Half Acre looking for this place.
Oh, is that what you were looking for?
That's what I was looking for.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah. Does everybody,
Just make them pay for your gas.
my guess, yeah.
If I go to the park,
Bob's reading. Bob, are you done?
He's doing it.
Wait.
Madam Chairperson.
Go ahead,
Put a
Tom.
motion on the floor that Z 1410 be approved.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions on it? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you all very much, and we appreciate the courtesy of being bumped up. He might be able to make the Phillies game.
Thank you for it.
Not that it would be worth it necessarily going to see them.
I'm a fan, I go home.
Yeah. Thank you again for all your time.
You're welcome. Take care. Good job. Appreciate it.
I put my agenda away. Okay, we gotta go up to.
Okay.
I don't like counting upside down. Item number 3,
3 is 3, yes.
okay. Who wants to read that? C1409.
You want to read it?
You don't-
Let Joyce read, she's got a nice.
Joyce, you want to read that? She has her finger on it. Go ahead, Joyce.
Certainly. Item 3, Z 1409, Daniel and Patricia Tabor, 3987
I'm
Yorkers
hoarse
Road,
today.
Collegeville,
I
PA
have-
19426. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached, single-family dwelling on an unimproved land on Fifth Street, Norristown. The applicant requests relief from 143-37 R2 lot area requirement of 30,000 square feet down to 14,000 square feet. Item 2, the applicant requests relief from 143-37 R2 lot width requirement of 150 feet down to 140 feet. The applicant requests relief from 143-37 R2 front setback requirement of 50 feet down to 30 feet. The applicant requests relief from 143-37 R2 rear setback requirement of 60 feet down to 34 feet. The parcel ID number of subject property is 430004654001, and then 04648-007, 04651-004, and 04657-007. Subject property is located on 5th Street, Norristown, PA 19403, and is currently zoned R2 residential. It's a mouthful.
Okay.
Clements, are you ready to proceed?
I am.
Welcome.
Good evening. It's been a while since I've been before the board.
We've missed you.
Thank you. I just would like to hand my card to the recorder. I suspect that aspects of this application look familiar to the board. The equitable owners involved with this property had previously filed a very similar application to seek very similar relief. This application is filed by the owners themselves, Daniel and Patricia Tabor. Mrs. Tabor is here tonight to testify. The requests that we're making are dealing with unique aspects of the township property in that area on Hillside Avenue. These are the famous movie lots that have been the subject before this board on numerous occasions. In this instance, there are 4 of these small lots which are owned. 2 of them are owned by Mr. and Mrs. Tabor in an individual capacity. 2 of them are owned by their LLC, of which they are the sole members and have full ownership, control, and assignment and transfer rights too. The R2 requirement for minimum lot size cannot be met by these accumulated properties in any capacity. The minimum lot size for public sewer and private water, which is what the applicant is proposing to do with a well, is 30,000 square foot. The combination of these 4 lots would render it to be a 14,000 square foot maximum. The side yards are not a problem for any building plan, but the front yard is 10 feet, excuse me, the width of the property is 10 feet short, so it needs 150. We have 140, and we're asking for a variance on that. The front yard similarly is 50 foot as required by the ordinance, and the amount that we have is 30 foot. And the rear yard requirement is 60 feet, and we're seeking a reduction by variance to 34 feet. The area, the Hillside Avenue area, 4th and 5th Streets as well, have a mixed character, I guess is probably the best way that I can say it, as far as the various homes there. The area is consisting of a lot of older homes, some newer homes, most of which, or maybe the better choice of words is to say many of which are on undersized lots. This board has in the past dealt with some of these undersized lots with recent construction and has granted variances to allow properties to be developed with a single-family home, which could not meet the minimum size lot requirements as well as the setbacks. So the character of the neighborhood has the combination of older homes and some newer homes which have been
beyond the confines of the zoning requirements. I did read the prior decision that was rendered by this board on the other applicant's application, which was the equitable owners. And I do wish to address some of the items that were there. Specifically, what I want to point out, I understand that Lower Providence Township had issued a letter in which they indicated that they did not approve of a building greater than 2,400 square feet. In fact, the application indicates that the owner was looking to develop something along the lines of 2,100 to 2,600 square feet, but they had submitted their diagram showed the highest amount. So it appears that the applicant has no problem, and I could commit to that, the applicant would have no problem with complying with the 2,400 square foot requirement, as the township apparently had indicated that they were in agreement with. And that was stated in this application as well as the prior application submitted by the equitable owners. Now, the issue about whether there's a well or public water is an issue that I think is one of cost. In the situation where there would be a well that would be put on this property, the applicant, of course, would be required to comply with all federal, state, municipal, county requirements for the construction of a well to make sure that it's constructed properly and does not interfere with or affect adversely the neighboring property. So I think that that is something that the board can defer that issue to the proper authorities that do regulate the permitting of wells. There was one item on the prior decision that I found confusing that addressed something with the public welfare, but it indicated that there was an objection by a neighbor about not having enough room for children to play. I was confused about whose children they were and where they would be playing, but my point that I would raise about that is that, again, this application is seeking to have dimensions that are not out of keeping with what is already in the neighborhood and what has been granted by this board in recent periods of time. I think there was also a concern that the applicant had created this hardship themselves. The lots are the lots. I mean, they have the 4 lots. Even though they're in separate ownership, they are in effect owned by the same people. They are wanting to combine these into one larger lot. But to impose a requirement that they have to continue to acquire additional lots to come up to size, I think is erroneous. They, again, are not out of keeping with the character of the neighborhood. This type of relief has been granted in that neighborhood in the past. And again, any detrimental effect on any neighboring properties would be controlled by the well permitting process and by the fact that they are substantially in conformity with the rest of the neighborhood, and they have no ability to develop this property as a residential development as it exists now. The lot size is just too small. So I specifically, as I said, wish to point out that they were not out of joint with what the township was requiring. The 2,400 square foot requirement was not at odds with what it is that they were proposing.
So we're amending the application then to delete that reference to 2,100 to 2,600 square feet, which is in number 9 of the additional page that was added. Is that right?
Where I'm looking at it, it says the proposed house will be somewhere between 2,100 and 26 square feet. So I think that they had covered that, but certainly we would amend it to say that we would comply with 2,400, yes.
Okay, because 2,600 is just a little bit bigger, that's all.
Okay, and that's not, we would agree to that. I guess my point was is that the they were saying that they would go 2,100 to 2,600, and perhaps the people got set on the idea that it was,
26.
adequately, it was 2,600 or bust, and that's not in fact the case.
It didn't include the garage.
Yeah, we can go to that, but I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page as far as the space or the size of the house that we're talking about.
Yes, 2,400 is.
Okay, and I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I think that's where I was going with that, so.
Okay, great. Anything else? I mean, I'm not going to cut you off, I just had a couple of questions. I mean,
No, that's it. I think
that's
you're
your
very
opening,
familiar
your
with it.
argument based upon where you're going with this whole thing, and I get that.
And I didn't want to ignore what had happened before. I
Before,
don't-
well, that raises an issue, though, and since we're having sort of this legal discussion, it's not an argument, it's just a discussion at this
As I
point.
understand.
How does this application differ from the previous application? And because we lawyers like to talk about fancy Latin words, what's the res judicata effect of the previous application to this one?
I don't think there is one. The applicants were different. The applicant on the first application was the equitable owners. This is the application of the actual owners. I guess from a legal point of view, if the equitable owners don't present the case in a way that is persuasive to the board, the owners have the right to come back on another application and make the case for themselves. While it is the same property in question, the applicants themselves are different.
And so in the application itself, in number 7, there's a reference to Accolade Properties, Inc. as the equitable owner. It's no longer the equitable owner?
There can be both a legal owner and equitable owner coexisting. In fact, they have to. But the applicant, if you note on the cover sheet of the application, the
Are the
applicant
Tabors,
themselves
right.
is Mr. and Mrs. Tabor,
Right.
whereas on the previous one, it was Accolade Inc., Accolade Properties Inc. as the applicant.
Right. That's why I asked the question whether Accolade still is an equitable owner or not.
Yes.
Okay. And you raised the other issue with respect to the actual owners, because that was one of the questions that I had, and perhaps we're getting ahead of ourselves because we're not at the end of the hearing yet.
Yes.
But I'm just trying to do some housekeeping to eliminate some of these issues up front, and that is, some of these parcels are not owned by Mr. and Mrs. Tabor, but they're owned by their namesake entity.
Yes.
Which is all well and good, and I hear what you're saying with respect to them having control over the LLC, because again, we lawyers have that ability to understand that, not that the lay people don't, but we also have the ability to know that we keep these things separate for a reason. So the LLC is separate, and I'm just putting it out there to find out whether is the LLC joining this application, or is it just Mr. and Mrs. Tabor?
Well, they haven't joined it in the sense
But
that
shouldn't
there's
they?
not a signature on here for that, but Mrs. Tabor is here, and she would, as a member of the LLC, join in the application.
Okay, I just wanted, that was a housekeeping
And if
item.
it was also a condition of approval that the LLC joins its parcels with the individually owned parcels, of course, we would accept that condition.
Okay, great, thank you, sorry. You can continue with your discussion, or you can call your first witness.
Okay. As far as a witness, I just have Patricia Tabor. I don't really know that I need to present any testimony on behalf of Mrs. Tabor. I would think that the application is complete in and of itself. I think the board understands the dimensional features of this property and the points that we're making about why the variances should be granted, which are really in the nature of a legal argument. But I do want to have her available to answer your questions.
My initial question then is, Mrs. Tabor and Paula, when you're ready, you can swear her in, please. Mrs. Tabor, just a question. You heard your counsel refer to the application which has been submitted, and that, in essence, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but from my perspective, it sounds to me like this is your case, and you verify what's in this application, and you, in essence, offer this as your testimony?
Yes.
Questions?
I have a question on how many times have we seen this property come up here?
Well, I only know of two, the prior application, I think in April, and this one. Are there any more?
The reason for building on a little lot and having not much around it, I believe one of the people in the audience got up and addressed the grass. It wasn't about putting a park in. What he was saying was, the house is so big, there's not enough grass around it for the kids to play in their own yard. I mean, those movie lots have been with us for a long time, in Eagleville and in Trooper. And it's good that they get combined, but you gotta be reasonable about how many you combine and how big a property you build. Like, we didn't even talk about the garage.
No, that's right.
I mean, there's more square footage.
You look at the.
Right, and the fact that those people have wells up there is a big issue. We just keep going over this property over and over and over again, but nothing drastic changes. I mean, do you own property around this?
There's,
Lots?
there's a piece just next to this property that is a matter of litigation. It's under, yeah, I can't sell it because, would you like to talk about it? Or no?
Is that litigation with your neighbor, Mr. Miller?
Well, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, there's a disputed lot that you would not.
There's a dispute because some years ago, the Millers constructed.
Well, let me just stop you there. The question was, and if you don't mind, Mrs. McFarland, I'll state it. She was asking you about, do you have other pieces of property? And I presume that she was asking you, do you have something that you can then combine with these four lots to make it larger? And you cannot because there's a legal impediment to that? And that involves the neighbors, the Millers, who are adjoining to this property, is that correct?
May I ask, is that property, is that 4,000 square feet? Is that, because I think in the original 2004 application, there was a reference to 18,000 square feet, and now it's 14. And I know that may have been before, I don't know even who filed that original request for a variance. But it seems like we've gone down instead of up, and I'm wondering if that's the 4,000 square feet that's under
400 square feet.
400.
4,000.
4,000. Okay, that is
Yes,
the
and
property.
I can't sell that.
Okay.
At this time. I mean, I can't use that, rather, I apologize, I can't join that with my property.
But the properties that are at issue, the four lots that you have at issue, cannot be joined with this fifth lot.
There's actually, there's two small ones.
Okay.
I think it's actually two, but it's an additional 40 feet by 100 feet.
I
Does that answer-
apologize because I wasn't here for the first go-around with
Neither
this.
was I.
So I'm probably going to ask a couple of questions that have been already asked and answered.
This is a new hearing, let's not confuse
Yeah,
things.
this
You
is
have the right
true.
to
You can
ask as
ask
many
anything.
questions as you want.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of record here before you to ask questions on, unfortunately, but you can ask.
This lot, the four lots in question, the combined property, I noticed there's a hill behind it. Does that hill start on your property, or is that up in your neighbor behind you?
I mean, the property just has a gentle slope to it.
But it seems like it really tips down more quickly at some point in time. I'm concerned here, I guess, primarily about, it's such a small lot, about runoff. And especially during construction and after construction, if a house were built there, that there could be some issues with, the downhill running of the water. Well, water always runs downhill.
It says, here are usually the requirements when someone is building, you have to put up silt fences and whatnot to prevent that from happening.
And the other issue.
You can't prevent the water from running off, but you can.
Yeah.
And there's not a house directly behind, it's sort of a junkyard actually directly behind the property, and illegal junkyard, but a junkyard nonetheless. So it's not that it's going to be running water into someone's beautiful property and into their homes.
I think the well issue was touched on earlier too, and this may have been, well, again, this is a separate hearing. I don't know if you're aware of how many wells there are surrounding your property and whether they've had any issues with them running dry, whether an additional well would stress the water table. Have you done, has there been any studies or anything on that you're aware of?
No, but I think that it's regulated by the county. They generally come out and they don't approve a well unless you're getting a certain flow and, you know, a certain amount of water per minute, gallons per minute. They regulate that and they approve, you know, they make the decisions whether or not to approve it.
Would you address the availability of public water?
Sure, it's a hillside. I mean, it's a hillside avenue.
How far away?
I believe if I brought water in, I'd have to bring it to the end of my property, so it would be, 153, about probably 700, probably about 450 feet I'd have to run it.
Is that American water?
It was last
It was.
night, yes. Now, when I had to run it from on 4th Street, when we built on 4th Street, by the way, on a very similar sized lot, actually almost 2,700 square foot house with a two-car garage, a much larger footprint than what I'm proposing here on a similar sized lot. It cost almost $30,000 to run water to one house. It's really cost prohibitive.
And the neighbors, to your knowledge, for the parcels that are in question, all have wells? All the adjoining properties are served by wells? If you don't know, you don't know.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, I know all of the people past definitely have wells. I just wasn't sure about the rancher, you know, prior to it. They may have tied in. I'm not sure, but I don't know.
What, and you may not know the answer to this, you know what the sizes of the surrounding lots are and how big the houses are? Have you done any checking on that?
I mean, they all vary, really. It's very much, it's very, very, you know, a lot. But within a block and a half of this, I personally have been here 3 other times and have built and have done similar sized lots, similar sized houses that have been built and granted. So it's, the lot sizes vary. I mean, you know, the Millers obviously have a larger piece of property, but most of them are on 80, 100-foot wide lots. I mean, in that whole area, they're all undersized. I don't want to say they're all undersized. That's probably a blanket statement, but
Well, that's the crux of the issue.
most of them are undersized.
That's what Ms. Clements had mentioned earlier, but you're not old enough to remember that commercial about where's the beef. But the question is, where is that evidence? I mean, we're talking in the air, if you will, about there being other properties, and we can't take judicial notice of it per se, but you can point them out to us for sure, which is what we'd like to see. And if you know anything about when those were decided and what the conditions of that decision was or were, that would be helpful.
Yes.
The ones that I was personally granted, I can certainly give some information about that.
Not that necessarily this board is bound by that decision. However, I think it would be helpful for everyone to hear that.
2966 4th Street was approved and constructed in 2006.
And to specifically to get the issue on the record, How large a lot size?
So that house, that lot size was 160 feet wide by 100 feet deep.
Total, the total area?
16,000 square feet.
Okay.
And how big a house? I'm sorry to
20
interrupt, but
That's okay, no, 2,660 square feet.
and did that house have public water, do you know, or was that a well?
That's the one that cost almost $30,000.
Okay, so that did have public water.
Too.
And that was a variance approval?
Yes,
What year?
2006.
2006.
That's when it was built, was the approval then, do you know?
Very close to that. The early 2006, late 2005, early 2006.
Okay.
I don't know that I can speak intelligently on that one, so I'm just going to pass on that, because that was very much approval.
Go ahead.
Does LLC have other lots in that area?
This is it.
Just one lot they have?
This is, well, there are 6 lots. The lots I'm looking to combine are 4. 4 lots to build this one. The other 2 lots will be adjoined with the Miller's property at some point.
Those are the 2 lots you mentioned which are subject to a legal dispute with them?
Yes.
So to answer Mrs. McFarland's question, you have these 4,
And that's
and then
it.
those other 2 which you do not have the ability to conjoin with these.
Not at this time.
Okay, what,
Well, there
go
was
on,
one more at
go on with it.
405 Hillside, right on the corner. And that house was 2388 square feet on a 15,400 square foot lot. And that was approved in 2004.
The zoning was approved, I'm sorry, there was a variance approval in 2004?
Yeah, and that, I mean, and that, again, is a similarly sized, it's right there, you know, so I think it adds to what the character of the neighborhood is. There's also a new house down at the bottom of, you know, a large house at the bottom of Hillside. I mean, they are spread sporadically throughout the area. You know, there's not very many places to build new houses, and yet we still have lots of people that want to live in Lower Providence Township. So, you know, people put them where they can, take down old houses and build new houses. And, you know, I mean, I don't know if you've been back there, but I can't help but think that anyone in the neighborhood wouldn't feel a house on this lot would be an improvement to what is there currently. It would just be much more appealing.
You had a question?
Yeah, Mrs. Clemens, you said that this has been up before the board twice, Accolade Properties and now this one here.
Yeah, this very similar application.
I'm going to ask you how good your memory is now.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to ask you how good your memory is. Because I went to the Borai alcoves down in my basement, and I dug up something from 2004 that you represented the same lots. You
Yeah, I
remember?
think that was what Mr. Hart was
You
referencing.
You remember that?
Vaguely.
And it was turned down then because she didn't have the 18,000 square feet at that time.
Actually, that was, at that time, we applied for two
You applied for
separate
3.
houses. 2 separate houses.
You applied for a 8,000 lot, you applied for a 10,000 lot.
Right, right.
And
two
you were
houses there.
denied. You were
Correct.
denied.
That's right.
Okay,
was
I just
denied
want to
putting
bring you up
2
to,
houses.
I just want to bring you up to date that
No,
you said.
I know.
I think Mrs. Tabor's point is that it was a different, that the
it was
character.
Same lots.
Yes, but different, if I can just state that it was different types of applications. At that point, she was trying to put 2 houses on the same lots. Now we're combining those 4, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Combining those 4 into 1 and putting 1 house on. So I cannot recall the details myself personally on that, Tom, but I think, you know, her point is that it was 2 lots with a house, 2 lots with a house. And now this is 4 lots with 1 house.
She's asking for less, in essence.
Yes.
She's asking for 14,000 square feet.
I'm sorry?
She's asking for 14,000,
Yes.
right?
You have any more, Tom?
No, I just, you know, it's,
Kathy, you have any?
No, I have no questions.
Mr. Hart?
No, thank you.
Joyce?
I do. Your last piece of testimony, you were talking about how this would enhance that neighborhood. Way back when this first came on our agenda, back, I believe in January, February, I had ridden out there to look at the lot, and it has some trees on it, it does slope, it also has some wild bushes, if you would. But for neighbors around on the other side of the street, we actually heard testimony from those neighbors that they felt it would really damage their neighborhood and their view, and they were concerned about the wells. You know, they've had a problem there, they have had issues. So I understand there are two perspectives, but also it would have helped me both prior and on this application if instead of saying in a vague manner that there were 7 to 9 that we believe were also approved prior. Now, it helped that you gave us 2, but we don't know I don't know what other boards have done, and that doesn't really influence what we're doing here tonight. It can't. We understand the history around these small lots, and we do appreciate that, and we appreciate your coming in and explaining as much as you can to us, but the bottom line is this really hasn't changed, and a 2,400 square foot home, not including a garage, is still huge for this little bitty lot. It's not just, it's all the sides and everything that you need to have made down, you know, it's postage stamp putting a very large building on it, multi-story. So it's just hard for us to visualize, for me personally.
Well, I mean, I know that sounds large, but, you know, I think it's, something to remember is that the 2,400 is in 2 stories. So the footprint of the house is, you know, 1,175.
Let me stop you there. What she's referring to with her diagram is a part of the application, so perhaps that would be helpful.
It's this.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
even with the 2-car garage, you know, you're talking about a 1,500 square foot footprint, which, you know, I mean, it's not really, you know, theoretically on that lot, without even needing any side setback variances, you could put a house, a 90-foot wide house, you know, on 140 feet, if you have 25-foot setbacks on either side. Theoretically, I could have a 90-foot wide house. You know,
Well, then you get into pervious and impervious coverage, you get into drains, you get into water issues. There is a slope to the land, because I did go and look at it. So, yes, in theory, I suppose you could, but it's...
It is well below the impervious coverage requirement.
Well, this one is, but I think what Joyce was talking about is if you made it 90, it could then get into it, is the issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as far as, you know, bringing up past zoning hearing board decisions to go back and research that could be done. But as you said, you're not bound by those decisions, and they were different boards and different points of view on that. But
there may have been some kernels of information that would have been helpful.
Well, certainly we could provide that, but it's the character of the neighborhood, or the nature of the surrounding neighborhood that we were addressing in that sense, though, that there are, while, you know, we could pick out the individual ones which have had variances granted, there are also pre-existing homes that also are oversized on small lots.
Right, well, we want to try and be consistent in what we do, so there's predictability. You heard earlier tonight when the first applicant was here that one of the neighbors said that somebody built a house behind them, 4,000 square feet on a small lot. It's a beautiful home, but...
You didn't know about it.
But that's the kind of thing that the board has to deal with, because we want to be all things to all residents if possible.
In that regard, I did not address that specifically because, again, I thought it was history. It was helpful for showing the nature and character of the surrounding development. But if you have no objection to requesting a continuance to provide that for the next time?
They need more information.
We'd be happy to research that, provide a memorandum, and either, continue this to submit that so that there could be public response to it as well, or I think that's probably the only way we could do that.
Getting back to the water issue, your neighbors have wells in that area?
Yes, they testified.
How
they
close
did.
would your well be to their well?
I'm not sure, I haven't determined that yet, but it would certainly be, the county, if the county would determine how far from each well it would need to be, and so it would obviously have to meet that criteria. You know, so as not to encroach on.
I mean, when you have the house as big as it is, there's not much area to choose and pick where your well's going to be. And your neighbor's not going to have, your neighbor's going to have the same problem. And those houses are tight up there. And you lose a well, you lose a lot.
Bob, you're up.
Yeah, I was just going to comment, and the reason we were asking maybe if there was some history on this and the lots surrounding the area and what variants have been approved in the past and why they were approved. I just did some quick math on the two that you mentioned, and they were running a little over, well, one was 61.6%, one was 64%, the lot size as opposed to the required lot size. And here we're looking at something that's like 46%. You're not even at half. And I think that's why I was asking about the additional 4,000 square feet that were back in 2004. At least that gets you up to 18,000, which is 60%. But this just seems so much under without proof that there were other lots around with houses on them of comparable size. This does seem like a real stretch. And again, I'm coming at this fresh, but you know, that's what I'm seeing right
Well,
now.
in that regard, since it is a concern, I would request that we come back to be able to provide you with that historical information in a memorandum form and present it at an additional hearing so we can address those concerns, if the board had no objection.
Should we have
So,
testimony from the?
He wants a break.
Tom wants the break. Talk about it.
He wants a
do you want us to take a break to talk about it?
Do you want to ask anybody testimony?
Does it- does-
They're here.
Yeah.
Find
Yeah.
out from the
Probably do that.
They're
audience.
here, you don't want to.
Yeah.
Right, no, yeah. We will do that.
Okay.
So on the request for a continuance, there's some folks in the back there. Does anybody have anything that they want to say about this particular
We
application?
got three
A
hands.
couple of hands.
Come on down. You're the next contestant. One at a time is good. We don't want to confuse the issue.
Good evening.
State your
Stan
name,
Sarnasinski.
please.
Stan Sarnasinski, 408 Hillside Avenue, Eagleville, PA.
Eagleville.
Do not use Norristown. Sarnonski. We live in Eagleville, not Norristown. One thing you got to get straight. Everybody keeps putting Norristown on these addresses. It's Eagleville, Trooper, or Lower Providence. I got that off my phone. All right.
Is that it?
That's it. This
Oh, it's
area
not
that we
that.
live, we all live on the movie lots that we all know. Tom, Nancy, everybody's been up there. We're going through this. We got variance a couple years ago. All these homes were built in the 50s, 60s. They're less than 20 feet from this hillside. They're just so close. They're undersized, big homes. The neighborhood where Mrs. Tabor is trying to put this house back there, if you've been back there and you've seen the looks of this lot that's there, I don't know who's done it, but there's dumped concrete blocks, everything on there. I look at it as it would make the neighborhood look better to have that constructed with a beautiful house on it. They built 4 beautiful homes in our neighborhood in the last many years. The one across the street from me, the one behind us that we sold the property to them, the one down on 4th Street, and they rehabbed the one across the street from my son's house. It's just made the neighborhood look better. I know there's concerns with the well. We got city water about 10 years ago. Our well went dry in that area. But it was cheaper to join city water at the time. I have no qualms of having her put that house in there. to make the neighborhood look better. That's what my feeling is. The house behind me that was just built down on Fifth Street never came to you guys, or it never would have been built.
That's a magic house.
That's the magic house. 20,000 square foot lot with a 4,400 square foot house on it. Somehow it never got to you guys. I talked to you privately, you know what happened. We won't go any farther than that.
Let's clear that up. It never got to us, but it never got to the township either.
Yeah. Somebody signed off on it. We don't know who. Yeah, they got the building, and the demolition permits to tear the old house down, which even the solicitor didn't know it was done. It's another story there. It's a beautiful house. He built a beautiful house there, but that's another story. There's been things done in this township that sometimes the regular citizens look and go, how did that happen, you know? My draw is this would make the neighborhood look better. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Improves your property value, I suspect, too, you think?
Well, it probably does. It probably does. Get rid of that dump that's there. I mean, there's got to be everything in there. I mean, no, it's a shame.
But how would you feel if the dump was cleaned up?
How many years have been trying to do that? I mean, there's a lot of things in it.
Do I see your pen?
If the dump part was cleaned up, would you withdraw your support for this application?
No, I think the house would be good there. I really do.
So the dump is the property that the Tabors own?
No, I don't think so. It's surrounding.
Surrounding it, but people have started to put some things on our lot also.
You got empty lots here. People, see
We
something.
think it belongs to everybody, so
Yeah.
they just dump stuff there.
And that's code enforcement should take care of that. That's out of our hands there.
So they've tried.
He has his pen working there.
Do you
How
happen to
close-
know how close public water is?
We have it in front of our house. We're at 408 Hillside. We're on the other side of Hillside.
Okay.
So if she had to run it up Fifth Street, like she said, it'd probably be 400 to 500 feet to run above that wood. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a question.
Sure.
If you were sitting up here, sir, and you had to go by the ordinances that we have to go by, would you feel the same way?
I'd have to look at all of them, Tom.
Thank you.
Yes,
That's all I have.
that's it, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? And we can shortcut this if you'd like, in the sense that if you have, I think the issue before us now is whether there's going to be a continuance or not. And if there's anybody who came here to oppose, they may want to oppose the continuance. Doesn't sound like that's the case, right? You folks are all supportive of this? Okay. So,
I do have one thing that I would.
sure, you're welcome to speak. I just didn't want to keep people if we could avoid doing that.
It's very quickly. Patty did
Hey,
mention the house.
make sure.
Sorry, Stacy Remkowitz, RYMKIEWICZ, 400 Hillside Avenue, Eagleville. Patty did mention, I believe it's 405.
Speak into the microphone, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Patty did mention 405 Hillside, which is the property that's diagonal from us, and that it's similar in size. And I just did want to mention to you that they do have two small children, and they have a beautiful garden, and they've planted a lot of trees, and that's what we look at from our front porch. So for us, the Tabors have done a wonderful job. A house behind us is a Tabor home. The house directly across the street was rehabbed by the Tabors. That house diagonal at 405 is a Tabor home, and one a little bit further up 4th Street. And they're beautiful homes. The people that have purchased the homes have made the neighborhood that much better. So I understand that you have some concerns, and I understand the concerns with the well, but it has helped. It has helped our neighborhood. We've been there since 2003, and it has improved drastically in the neighborhood. So, but there are small children playing on that small lot. Our lot is small as well. I mean, you can throw a stone and you can hit the neighbor's house behind us, and that's just what we bought. And it's okay. You don't have to have a ginormous piece of property. He wouldn't want to mow it. So he's pretty grateful for the fact that it's kind of small. So thank you for your time.
I know you mentioned this. Could you tell me, where do you live exactly?
We live at the corner of 4th and Hillside.
4th and Hillside?
Yeah,
Okay,
400
great.
Hillside, yes. Anything else?
I don't want to deny him, the grass cutter is.
I'm repeating Jeff Sarnasinski, SARNOCI, 400 Hillside Avenue. I'd be repeating everything that they said. The Tabors built beautiful homes. They complement the neighborhood. Granted, the lot sizes, it is what it is. If you look at the homes across us at 405, the one they rehabbed right across from us, that Olive Zone 401, they've made them nicer. The neighborhood, the people that move in, they're good neighbors. Unfortunately, we've had some incidents from outsiders, but you can't do anything about that. I wouldn't oppose anything to them building another home, even if the lot size does not meet the requirements for the township.
So you support the application?
Absolutely.
And you support the request for a continuance, then, it seems to me, as well, if that's what they still want to do?
Yes.
Great, okay, thanks. Anyone else?
Linda Alabak. I live at 401 Hillside. I'm also in a house that's rehabbed by Patty Tabor, and one of the things that I've liked about that is that they are improving the neighborhood, and they're from the homes that are older, there are some homes farther down the street that are in disrepair, and looking forward to time when hopefully they can also be updated and look better in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Well, the fact that you're here and you're in a house that was renovated by the Tabors to support them is a very good sign as to their building prowess, because normally you can always argue about builders.
No, they're amazing.
That's at least the conventional wisdom.
They do a beautiful job. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Clemens, how would you like to proceed?
I wish I had a crystal ball, but since I don't, I would like to request that continuance to provide you with that historical information about the issue of variances similarly situated, so that the board would have that reference to see how that was done. And also, while we're at it, we'll do some more specific dimensions on the water issue, where the public water is as well. So I do request that.
And just possibly, you might want to look at house size. I don't know if you're locked into the 2,400 or if it's...
No, we were not locked in. If you recall, the application had indicated 2,100 to 2,600, so we are not locked in at 24.
But 21 would probably be as low as you think that you would want to build. Is that probably?
These days, I mean, what people are looking for out there, I also sell real estate, and I know what buyers are looking for, they love 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonials. It's what they love. And honestly, getting under 2,100 square feet for a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonial, it just gets, less desirable.
Right. Understandable. Thank you.
Other questions?
Okay.
You still want a break?
give us a break.
Okay. Tom wants to have a little conversation in the back.
Okay.
All right. Right now?
Yep.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break.
All our executive sessions.
Do we have
I'll make a
motion?
motion that we support the continuance.
And second.
I'll second that.
Bob? Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Granted.
Thank you very much. See you next month. Thank you.
Hopefully next month. We haven't been getting any cases coming up. Are we gonna have a special meeting to continue?
It's a continuance of the hearing, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, now,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
item 4 is now is anybody here for MB Investments?
Mike is on.
No, it's just a consideration, an open hearing. They're all together.
My motion, Tom, or you?
Who did?
I did, this last one. Yeah, that
Who
was
did?
me.
What happened?
It was a great second.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're friends, I guess.
Yeah, they work together.
What do they?
Oh, yeah, they all work for Central 21 in Audubon.
Okay.
And there's one in the dress.
The
She does
meeting
same
will
thing. They rehab houses.
continue.
It's part of their.
Part of their game. Part of their game.
Okay, thank you. Item Z1017, MB Investments. Is there,
And Madam Chair, I can tell you that I received a call from their counsel, and he asked me whether I thought that it was important that someone from his office be here. And as you know, this is a request to amend a settlement agreement, which technically can be done by the board as a matter of its discretion, because it, in essence, goes to a decision that was already rendered. However, as a result of the request that was brought to this board last month, there wasn't a public session at that time, and as a result, the board was of the mind to bring it back this month so that it could be discussed in public for all those to hear, see, or analyze. So that's why we're here tonight. And the question before us is whether the previous settlement agreement that was entered into by the township, by MB Investments, and by the zoning hearing board would be amended to, in essence, change the agreement from a single standing billboard, although the previous settlement would allow for two different stanchions or two different billboards to exist at the Mascaro property along 422. However, one board would have to be static, meaning the traditional billboard that you would be used to seeing in days of yore, and the current billboards configurations that people like, which are the electronic billboards. The previous settlement provided for one stanchion, meaning one billboard structure with a static board on one side and an electronic board on the other. The amendment request by MB Investments is to turn that static billboard on the same stanchion as the existing electronic billboard into a electronic billboard as well, so that there would be two electronic billboards on that one stanchion that currently exists at their property. Now, where it gets interesting, of course, is this information was brought before the township, and the township, in essence, has no objection to that proposed settlement agreement, provided, and that's a big proviso, number one, whatever agreement is reached has to be approved by the township solicitor, and, of course, this board, and, of course, that would mean your solicitor, who for the time being is me, until you folks decide to lynch me or take me out of here. From that perspective, that's a condition. And the other condition is that whatever is quantified, and thank you to Joyce for this information, because many of us, including me, just blew right by it. It doesn't specifically say in the draft settlement agreement that has been presented that the advertising that is to be provided, and Paula, slow me down if I'm going too fast, the advertising that's supposed to be provided, the advertising that's to be provided is to be provided to the township at no charge. And that is my understanding of the agreement that was reached before the township with MB Investments. So whatever you folks decide here tonight with respect to the amendment, those are some conditions that you would want to consider. So with that, I will leave it to you folks to ask questions or to
Okay, I'm
deposit
recusing
information.
myself from this because I spoke publicly against it when it came up the first time. And I am in all the information that's been passed out.
Thank you, Mrs. Eske.
See you later.
Since I don't know what a billboard of yore is, I have to recuse myself. And I'm not going to give a reason.
Thank you. It's your prerogative.
Yeah, you got to stick around. You got to pick your up your
Does anybody else
Yes.
want
Somebody else
to
better
leave?
leave.
So it's down to the
I
three,
did
and then there were
of us.
three.
Okay. I want to clarify, Keith, if we look at our stipulation under item 4, and then there are several subcategories under that, namely A, B, C, D, and E. My understanding is that the township wants to take advantage of the offer from MB and also Lamar Advertising jointly to allow them to have space, signage space on either face of these digital boards for township events, township, items, and that's all laid out very nicely in here. Item E, under paragraph 4, says, "At no cost or charge to the township, Lamar, through its own graphic design personnel, will assist the township in developing digital advertising artwork designs for the township, message spots chosen by the township, and how many days it has to be submitted to them, etc." But there is nothing in the bulk of that that indicates the township, neither today nor in the future, will have to use taxpayer monies to pay for the advertising, because it clearly states in paragraph 4 that Lamar is responsible for selling advertising space on the V-shaped billboards. So my concern is, even if this is something that our supervisors suggested and was agreed to, our job on the board is to protect the township's taxpayer money, and I would like it to stipulate that in plain English, as well as it doesn't say anything about down the road, what if the land is sold, what if, the signage is taken over by someone else? Then what happens? So there's nothing for what I would call perpetuity to protect the township residents.
So in effect, what you're suggesting is that with those caveats or conditions, you might consider favorably the request for a amendment to the settlement.
Yes, and I'll further state that I specifically asked the question, what if we do oppose this as a zoning board, then what happens? And my understanding is it would move forward anyway. Perhaps it would have to go back through litigation, which again costs our taxpayers money. From that point of view, and the fact that I don't see any detriment from the digital sign face currently, I've not heard of anything. I've asked questions. We've not had any complaints or further accidents that I'm aware of. I can see no reason for us to sit here tonight and oppose it, with the stipulations that it's not going to cost anyone, residents, money now or in the future. And I want that in plain English, not legalese. But thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for me as
Yeah.
the solicitor for the board, but double teaming because there is no one here for MB? I can answer any questions based upon my discussions with the lawyer.
No, I don't have, I'm sorry. I don't have any questions. I would just like to add to what Joyce just said, that I think a great deal of time and effort, and especially money, has been spent on this matter, and perhaps it's time to move on. And it is my understanding, as you said, there hasn't been one complaint by a township resident about the current billboard. And there certainly has been no information that we received about any accidents or problems that have been caused by it. So at this point, I think that perhaps it's time to just take a vote on this matter and move forward.
I have a question. I know they said we could put township activities.
Public service announcements
Yeah.
and things.
Does
yes.
that mean like the ambulance squad could put on something?
That would be between
The
the ambulance
firehouse could
squad
put on
and the
the fair.
firehouse with the township, but it's really the
Right.
township that has that
Township.
right under this agreement.
So all the township has to say is Lower Providence Township welcomes the Fireman's Fair.
No, well,
I wrote up
Nancy, the
the first one.
stipulations, and there's a number of days in which they have to receive the advertising.
And do
Lamar
it.
has to actually do it.
I saw that.
Yeah, so it's,
But it can be
but
as
it
simple as
said-
what you
But
refer
it
to.
said well, now I can't find what it said.
Message spots
anyway,
chosen by the township.
Right. Anyway, they'd have to give them the message they want.
Correct.
Right.
Township
But,
would supply
I
it.
mean, they, you know, the library has things going on.
Right.
All those functions can be built into the,
Correct, it's a township message, the township would deliver that, Lamar would assist them in designing something that would be
Right.
attractive theoretically and
For
appealing.
6 weeks a year, it's limited.
yeah.
Yeah, for 6 weeks a year according to this, and that's the terms the township set,
That's a lot of
1
time,
week
yeah.
increment, yeah.
so.
And I see, the common pleas judge was Judge Silo waiting to.
Gary Simon.
He was assigned to the case, and theoretically it would go back to him.
Yeah, so if we don't agree, then he decides what we're gonna do.
If we don't agree, then they obviously would have the right to appeal and
Right.
go back to where it was in the court system before, which is what we tried to extract from the system because it was a
Right.
little bit onerous,
Yeah.
and we ultimately did resolve it. And that's why I say,
Yeah.
in many respects, you folks could make that decision as the board, modifying your previous effort.
Okay.
But does anybody in the audience have anything they want to say about it? Yes,
Yes.
sir, Mr. Thomas. I see you without my glasses.
Donnie Thomas, 19 North Trooper Road.
She doesn't
Trooper.
have anything to, you know, that's not real loud for her.
Did you get that? 19 North Trooper Road, Trooper, PA, Lower Providence resident. I just wanted to address this issue because...
Is the mic on? Yeah.
I don't know. Is the mic on?
Doesn't sound like it, but.
It's on. That any better?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to rise and address this issue tonight because for me it's a matter of public safety. This issue received a lot of scrutiny as MB Investments pushed hard to get this. Everybody knows it was okay, then it was denied, then it was a court case, and the township won the case, and MB Investments sued the township to get that decision overturned, and we ended up with a settlement agreement, which is what's in front of you now. To get to that settlement, MB Investments reduced what they were requesting to what the township could, Board of Supervisors could accept, and what they have is the agreement you have. I say that because that's what MB Investments agreed to. That's what the supervisors accepted. It was a settlement agreement. They agreed, and for very good reasons, to create a static billboard facing east so that westbound traffic coming around the curve and off the bridge would not have the distraction of that. Also, the Valley Forge Crossings Trailer Park would not have the effect of a very large light emanating animated sign shining through their windows from across 422. They would have a static billboard. That's why the west-facing side was allowed to be digital. There's nothing over there. It wasn't going to bother anybody. If you make the east-facing side digital, you get a glaring man-made obscenity facing the national park, facing the homes of the people in Valley Forge Crossings. Also, with the new ramp, the westbound ramp coming onto 422, that ramp is going to ride straight at that sign and then drop down into 422 into the massive amount of high-speed traffic we have coming around that curve, because you know as soon as they get past the Trooper exit, they take off. And now you've got a merge trying to take place, and you've got a great big digital animated sign staring the drivers in the face that they're trying to watch change as they're trying to merge and look left in their mirror to get over. I think this wasn't the agreement, and changing to allow this, I don't know, puts more money in their pocket, which fine, I'm not against people making money, but we have an agreement, and it was based on serious safety concerns, and that seems to be out the window now because the Board of Supervisors, in a split decision, decided that they'd like to have a little bit of free advertising, which I might point out that MB Investments can offer the township on the digitized sign they already have, if they're so community-minded. And I believe they are. They do a lot of good for the community. But I think this change to this billboard is a bad idea for the safety of people on 422 and for the quality of life for the people who live across 422 in the Valley Forge Crossings Trailer Park. And I thank you for letting me speak this evening.
Thank you. Anyone else? The numbers are dwindling. To make you last. Well, your last name starts with a T, so you're always at the back of the alphabet anyway. Questions for Mr. Thomas?
Where and when did it change? From one,
What changed to what?
well, he's saying it, where the digital,
That's what the amendment to the agreement is. They want to change it to digital on the piece of
On both sides.
Yeah, that's the request.
They've already got an agreement. They already have their
Yeah,
sign.
they have the agreement.
well,
Then my next question would be then, and I think you've already kind of gone over this, if this board doesn't agree,
Goes back
then
to
what is the
court.
next action? Is it back, it's
you
back to
go
the
back
court?
to
Back to
court,
court.
And
and then the judge will decide.
But it's the-
I just have a question. This is not in court. They're not suing for this, are they?
No, they're asking to change the
They're
existing
asking-
settlement agreement.
But
right.
the settlement agreement's already been signed and agreed to. So
How come there's no
if they
signature
feel
there?
so strongly about getting, MB Investments feels so strongly about getting this, they'd have to go to court and sue to change the agreement they've already signed off on.
They would either have to seek another variance from the existing ordinance and agreement.
Yeah.
Or they'd have to do what theoretically they did before. I wasn't part of that, but I think that they did end up suing, which got us into court, or that was an appeal of a decision, I don't remember.
This is all signed.
The decision was made, and the settlement agreement, if I'm not mistaken, the settlement agreement that was reached between the township and MB Investments that they now want to amend, stated, if I'm not mistaken, stated in the agreement that this was the end. They agreed to withdraw their continuing.
And it doesn't really say that, because I looked at that issue, because that was one of the questions that I had for them, which was how do you reopen something that's already been closed?
Right.
And unfortunately, it hasn't been closed. It's still existing on the docket as an open matter.
It was my understanding that that was the reason for the agreement, and I'm surprised to hear that.
I was surprised to see it because that was the question that I had initially, which was, well, how do you change something that you've already stipulated to and the case is over? And I
Yes.
pulled the dockets and the case isn't over, but there's no activity in the case, because that was a year ago.
Well, that would be a sad mistake for our township government to have done that. And that's not easy for me to say.
Right.
Okay?
So that's where you are, Madam Chair.
I'm just curious as to if the Board of Supervisors in their official capacity obviously approved this or agreed to this, that there's not someone here to perhaps explain their reasoning to us. And I'm talking someone in the official capacity as a representative of the Board of Supervisors. I mean,
You know, all we've received is a letter from council saying that they have reached an agreement on this, and the agreement has been codified in that draft that was presented to us, which Joyce correctly points out was not specific enough.
Right.
And she wants to make it specific.
I really do, as I said before, hate to keep dragging these things on. I'm just wondering now what the instigating factor was to go back and revise the agreement and go before the board. What brought that on? If it was an open document.
Can we ask Dawn, was that in an open public meeting that that decision was made and the vote taken 2-2?
The decision to approve the amendment was made in public.
but there was not a lot of information around why or what went into that? Because that's your concern.
Were you the lone wolf on that one too, Mr. Thomas?
I don't remember the count on the vote, but you can infer.
Did you have any support?
Honestly, don't remember. I don't think so.
I think we have to go. I don't want to go back to court.
I
Can you
just
make a
hate
motion?
to have further expense brought forth in this matter, you know, if in fact it goes down that road. I don't know.
All I will say is, I went through all the documents because I was one that early on, with this whole issue of the billboard, because I'm a member of the Friends of Valley Forge National Historical Park, because that was a concern that was raised in the public hearings at the time when this first came about. Reading back through all the testimony, however, it seems that all the points that were brought forth by the citizenry, by Deirdre Gibson from the park, by Kathy Esky, who's excused herself, I mean, a lot of the negatives that were around this were either, they discounted them, they said it was not valid, it was not, the site views from the park were not an issue. The testimony that was given by the traffic analyst person on the number of accidents over a certain period of time around that curve, that was also downplayed as though it were not an issue. I have paid attention to this. I go to the park. I don't see that this, I don't live in the trailer park. I've not thought about it from those residents' points of view. I can't conceive yet of what the new on-off ramp is going to be. It's still totally in mud. Well, I mean, I've been down there, I ride through, but I personally don't know that that sign, if it is digital on this side, is going to, I hear what you're saying, I understand it would be a concern, but it hasn't happened yet. We have to, as citizens here and members of this zoning board, look after the taxpayers' money. And believe me, I'm very aware of that. And I just, yes, it kind of bugs me that, okay, we're coming back for a change now, but we do live in the world where we do have digital signs. People are becoming more accustomed to them. I don't know. I really, it's a tough one. I don't really want to spend the money. So I also have to consider that if our supervisors, as you said, came to the conclusion that this is okay to have this stipulation in there for them, I don't know.
You keep mentioning the money. I just wanted to ask, what money are you referring to? Because we're not in court over this.
No, but it looks like it could be.
I don't see that.
It could be further.
I don't see that.
And if it's not written correctly, it will be if the township starts using it and they bill them for sign advertising space. So, but no, there's been a lot of money spent already. It's like, let's put it to bed. And safety, yes, safety's an issue. And I'm only one person. I'm not, you know, it's up to what the board wants to do.
I just wanted to clear up the fact that declining this doesn't send anything back to court. It doesn't spend any money. Declining it, approving it, neither way does it spend any money. The issue's been settled with an amendment, with an agreement, and they're all of a sudden now with the Board of Supervisors is configured differently. They want more out of the agreement. I mean, it's not, doesn't take rocket science to see that. But the supposition that, you know, if we give them what they already have, which was more than they had a right to at the position the agreement was settled, the assumption that they'll go back to court, we could do this, and they could come back to court for the other two billboards and continue suing. I mean, are you going to put a provision in this amendment that then ends the litigation? Are we going to stipulate to that?
I don't know that we can. I mean, I think that if they were to come back, they would have to come back for a variance to do so.
To do what?
If they were going to put more up.
Well, the original decision was about 4 billboards.
Right.
Well, if this decision doesn't end that issue that's, you say is still open on the docket, then what's to stop them 3 months from now from going back to court and going, well, we got that decision, now we want the other 2 billboards?
No, that's part of the agreement, that they wouldn't have the 2.
The other would be removed.
That's part of the agreement, but you said that that doesn't end it, it's not open anymore. It's also stipulated that they only have 1 digital side.
Right.
Now
They're asking for more. Right, they can always come back and ask for more, but it doesn't mean that they automatically have the right to it. That's what this board's deciding.
Right.
And you're saying, when does it stop?
Well, they could drag us into court for the 2 more.
They could.
If you're assuming they're going to drag us into court for the second digital.
They could.
You know,
But they're not asking
you
for
don't
that.
end it- What I'm saying is you don't end it now because it's not stipulated in this agreement that it ends now.
It ends this issue for our purposes. It may not end them coming back later and saying, we want more, but you're saying, when does it end? When does it stop?
But that won't be on this issue. This issue will be closed if we agree.
Which issue will be closed?
No, his point is that there's a settlement agreement already, so that should close it. So why are we revisiting it now? And he's saying that if we go ahead and approve this, then what happens when they come back and they ask for the next one? If they come back and they ask for the next one, they come back and ask for the next one, and then we address that one when it comes up. But this one isn't as difficult a burden as that one would be.
But the assumption that Ms. Cluley is making is that if you deny this one, we're going to end up spending a bunch of money because they're going to drag us back into court. And I'm saying
No.
that if you agree to this.
All right,
it's still
I
not
take back that
No,
statement.
you shouldn't take it back.
I've been around here
No,
long
it's a-
enough to
it's a
know that what
reasonable-
often happens is you end up spending money in court.
It's a reasonable assumption because they've already asked us for this, and if we don't give it to them, then that in essence
Your guidance,
projects
that was
means
kind of what you were saying.
You're right that it doesn't mean that they can't come back and ask us for more, even more than this, but they haven't right now.
And if they ask you for more and you deny it, they can drag you back into
They can.
That'll be another
They can.
board at another time.
If we're still
They
alive.
can.
Well, now you're the board,
Oh.
and I'm hoping that you'll do the right thing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time.
Thank you.
Shall we make a decision, or shall we talk about it, or what? We have 30 days, right? Don't we have a time limit? Is there a time limit on this?
It's not, that's why it's not really an application
It's a
for anything.
stipulation.
It's not, it's one of those sort of whifty kind of a thing. It's not an application per se. It's out there. You didn't necessarily have to bring it up in public like this, like you did, but you felt as though that would be important to do for transparency and full disclosure. So from that perspective, I think that makes sense. But there hasn't been any formal application process. So, and I think you should just make a decision one way or the other, frankly.
Okay.
If you're ready. If you're not, you're not. I mean, you can do a pocket veto. What is that? I mean, you can do nothing. If you choose to do nothing.
And that is, something that I think we considered before, but I'm not sure that would resolve anything in the long run. I feel a little bit, and I'm probably wrong on this, that the township perhaps could have given some more information on their thinking and their reasoning behind this, because they did open an agreement that had already been made. And I'm sure there were good reasons for that. I'm not saying there weren't. It's just that what we've got, is the packet of paper, but there's really not too much information on the thought process that went behind it. So that's why we're coming up with, well, maybe it's the cost, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But having said that, as I mentioned earlier, this has been dragging on for a while, and perhaps it's time to make a decision.
Well, just to help you a little bit, Bob, I'm looking at a letter that was sent to the supervisors in December of last year from Pat Mascaro saying that The billboard in question as constructed and used has been non-impacting. So I presume he believed that was enough to get it before the supervisors to say, you're concerned about it being a safety issue or being a distraction is not an issue. That's what you would read from that. And as also will the change from a static to a digital face be non-impacting? So he thinks that that's the case. If you change it, it's not going to be impacting. Now, of course, that's his opinion.
Right, that's.
And there's a valid point, too, about the intersection changing, but it hasn't happened yet. You know.
So from that perspective, and I think Mr. Thomas is right, if you read between the lines, there's more money to be made with an electronic billboard or digital billboard. And as he had also said, nobody has any problem with somebody making money, but the question is if they make money at the backside of the rest of us, that's a problem. And if that is that what this is, I don't know. But then that goes to the issue then of safety. What is the safety issue? And I don't dispute that there's perhaps a safety concern or issue out there. But that's the balancing test that you folks have to make. Does that safety issue far outweigh the request? And Joyce's point, which is, you know where this is going. If we don't do it, then I'll make a lot of money. Because I'll be the lawyer litigating the
Oh, I
thing.
forgot, you have your own angle.
That's right. That's not my intention or motivation, but that's what would happen until the board kicks me out.
Well,
So those are all the pragmatic considerations. Because, and Mr. Thomas is right, we don't know it's going to go down that route, but we sure as much have a pretty good hunch that's where it would go. So it's time to earn your money.
every morning I go down Main Street to go to work, and when I get to Markley, across the street is the biggest billboard. It's red, white, blue, orange, and it changes constantly. I mean constantly. And it's huge. It's the biggest one I've seen. And I sit in traffic light, and it entertains me.
It entertains you.
And it doesn't take me off why I'm there, because the
As
trail
your
has been-
pseudo lawyer, I would suggest that you retract that from the record, because you're supposed to be focused on the roadway.
But I know they're popular. People look at them and...
Well, I presume that if the
just
state in its infinite wisdom had a problem with it, they would have
they
restricted
would
them out of
not-
existence,
I was going to
right?
say, they would not have allowed.
I don't know. I mean, we all think that there's somebody
Can
doing
I
that.
ask, I believe I read in here, they are in compliance with the number of seconds that each display, I mean, that's all addressed in this as well, for the
It's-
digital signs?
Yes.
It's- Yeah, I thought I had read that.
And I think an advantage, if we can speak of an advantage, is being able to put the functions of our different facilities on it. And
Maybe an advantage to some.
For all those carpetbaggers that are going
that go
all the
up
way
and
out
down
to Berks County,
422,
right?
Yeah,
No.
right.
A lot, the fair, the donuts.
No, I agree. I think that there's a certain benefit, for sure.
I think it is true that to some sense, in some sense, the sign affects the people of Lower Providence Township less than other people, because seldom are we on that particular stretch of road, and that if you're going west, you're going out to one exit, you're going east, you're going the other
Yeah,
way.
other way.
And you're seldom on that part of the road, and that's not a good reason for doing anything that's unsafe, but
Yeah.
I don't think the impact on the township is all that great. Perhaps the trailer park, I'm not really aware of
I
that.
didn't think of it.
Yeah, I know they are, and I'm
Yeah,
saying, I said perhaps the trailer park, I'm not sure how that
Yeah.
does impact, but, okay. Nancy, you want to call for a vote?
Can I-
You're gonna make a motion?
Do we have a motion?
Go ahead, you can word it, maybe.
I would like to make a motion that the zoning hearing board approve the revised settlement agreement as already approved by the Board of Supervisors, and that we authorize our counsel, Mr. McClendon, to execute the settlement agreement on our behalf,
Changes.
provided that the services stated in the agreement are provided at no cost to the township. And was there a second point?
Almost.
Unlimited term.
On unlimited term.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yes, I second the motion.
Okay, Joyce seconds it. Any questions on the motion? This seat's hot, I'm going to stand up. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Nay? Ayes have it.
Thank you, everybody. Any other issues, Madam Chair, before the board?
Does it get any hotter?
Doesn't get it.
Not that- When's our next meeting?
July
July
24th?
24th.
July 24.
24th.
Be there.
Okay.
Will
do you
you
have-
get back to us once that wording is put in there?
I will circulate it before anything is signed.
And do you have things to be signed tonight?
I do. But unfortunately, we had a disjointed session, but I can give you some things.
There
Do I hear a
being no other
motion?
business before the board.
Is there any, does anyone in the audience have anything? Hearing none? Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
You have a motion.
Okay, second?
Second.
Meeting is closed.